Will the House come to order? Mr. Clerk.
Aloha and good afternoon. Today's invocation will be delivered by Representative Sean Quinlan. Will the members who wish to participate please rise?
Oh, please be seated. Please be seated. Today I'd like to share with all of you a quote from the warrior poet, philosopher, and robe enthusiast, General Kenobi, who famously asked the question, who is the more foolish, the fool or the fool who follows him? Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Aquino, Ms. Bellotti, Mr. Bronco, Ms. Clark, Ms. Costales, Ms. Eli,
Excused.
Mr. Ganadin, Mr. Gates, Ms. Har, Mr. Hashem, Mr. Hashimoto, Mr. Holt, Ms. Ichiyama, Mr. Iligan, Mr. Johansson, Ms. Capella, Ms. Kitagawa, Mr. Bertrand Kobayashi, Mr. Dale Kobayashi, Mr. Kong, Mr. Lopresti,
Present.
Ms. Lowen, Ms. Luke,
Present.
Ms. Martin, Mr. Matayoshi, Ms. Matsumoto,
Excused.
Mr. McDermott, Mr. McKelvey, Ms. Morikawa, Ms. Nakamura, Mr. Nakashima, Mr. Nishimoto, Mr. Ono, Ms. Okimoto, Mr. Onishi, Ms. Peruso, Mr. Quinlan, Mr. Saiki, Mr. Sayama, Mr. Takayama, Mr. Takumi, Mr. Tam, Mr. Tarnas, Mr. Todd,
Excused.
Mr. Tokioka, Mr. Ward, Ms. Wildberger, Mr. Woodson,
Excused.
Mr. Yamane,
Excused.
Mr. Yamashita, Mr. Speaker.
Here.
Mr. Speaker, 46 members are present, 5 are excused.
Thank you very much. Reading of the Journal, Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, may this matter be deferred.
So ordered. Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. Are there any messages from the Governor?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we are in receipt of message number 1102 informing the House that House Bill 1541 was signed into law on March 28, 2022 and designated as Act 2. May this matter be received and filed.
So ordered. Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. Are there any Senate communications?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we are in receipt of communications transmitting the noted House bills, all having passed third reading in the Senate.
Thank you very much. Representative Bellotti.
Mr. Speaker, I move to disagree to the amendments made by the Senate to the noted House bills.
Thank you very much. Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Thank you very much. Members, let's be by voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed say no. The motion is carried. Members, are there any introductions? Not. Thank you very much. Reports of standing committees. Representative Bellotti.
Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt Standing Committee Report numbers 1473-22 through 1517-22 as listed on pages 1 through 14, and that the accompanying House resolutions and House concurrent resolutions, as may be amended, be referred to their designated committees.
Thank you very much. Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Thank you very much. Members, page 1, Standcom Report number 1473, discussion. If not, we'll be taking the House concurrent resolutions and the House resolutions in tandem. Standcom Report number 1474 and 1475. 1476 and 1477, discussion. Yes, Representative Capella.
Reservations, please.
So ordered. Thank you, Representative. Further discussion? If not, thank you, members. Standcom Report number 1478 and 1479, discussion. 1480 and 1481, discussion. 1482 and 1483. 1484, discussion. 1485 and 1486, discussion. 1487, 1488. 1489, 1490, discussion. 1491 and 1492, 1493 and 1494, 1495, 1496. Discussion. 1497, 1498, 1499 and 1500. Discussion. 1501 and 1502, 1503 and 1504. Discussion. Representative Ward.
Speaker, I rise in opposition.
Please proceed in opposition.
Mr. Speaker, this is I would call it national gerrymandering. It's a way of sort of stacking the deck, if you will. It takes Washington, D.C. from what otherwise is a constitutionally designated capital of the nation and makes it just like all of us, a state. I think if you look at the numbers, it's got 718,000 people, which would mean one House seat, but it would be 2 Senate seats. The House of Representatives, the Congress, has already passed this. It's probably a DOA, dead on arrival, in the U.S. Senate. So I'm not sure what our motivation is to do this, and I know we can't impute motivation, but it looks like it's stacking on a partisan basis, one side of the aisle rather than for the other. And why we'd want to go against the Constitution to do this, I just don't understand. So for those reasons, Mr. Speaker, this is a national gerrymandering for the sake of one political party and to the detriment of the other. For those reasons, Mr. Speaker, this is not good policy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Representative Quinlan.
In support, Mr. Speaker.
In support, please proceed.
Brief comment. If you were to travel to Washington, D.C., and you would find yourself stopped behind a car of a resident, and you took a look at their license plate, on a license plate it would say, "No taxation without representation." Thank you.
Thank you very much. Representative McDermott.
No vote, please, Mr. Speaker, and may my sentiments reflect the Speaker from Hawaii Kai's remarks.
So ordered. Thank you, Representative. Further discussion. Representative Ward, a second time still in opposition.
From my good friend from the North Shore, I really appreciate his input. However, I lived in Washington, D.C. for 5 years, and I had a license plate that said, it didn't say what he said, but he should know, as all of us should know, that the highest paid individuals in the nation are within that 135-mile radius. They are not hurting, they are prospering, and they want to leverage that prosperity into political leverage, and that's the issue. It's not whether taxation without representation. They have more representation. They have Congress basically as a city council, so they have access to all the power, all the individuals, all the capital that they need. Now, there's a lot of different issues that are going on in terms of the murder rate, et cetera, but in terms of their saying taxation without representation, that's a little bit off the wall. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Further discussion, Representative Tam, followed by Representative Nakamura. I'm sorry, Representative Nakamura.
In support.
In support, please proceed.
I'd like to ask that the words of the representative from North Shore be entered into the journal as my own.
So ordered.
And also would like to note that in 2019, there were 692,000 people living in Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Representative Tam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In support.
In support, please proceed.
I would like to have the words of the representative from the North Shore inserted into the journal as if they were my own.
So ordered.
I also want to make note that the population of Washington, D.C. is currently higher than the population of Wyoming or Vermont. And both of those states could send 2 senators to represent them and 1 congressional member to the House of Representatives. And it's simply unfair that individuals who are living in Washington, D.C. do not have adequate representation. And for those reasons, I am in support of this measure.
Thank you very much, Representative. Further discussion, members? Yes, Representative Okimoto.
No vote, please.
So ordered. Thank you, Representative. Is there any further discussion? Yes, Representative Matsumoto.
Reservations.
So ordered. Thank you, Representative. Any further discussion? Representative Lowen.
In support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
In support, please proceed.
I'd like to have the words of the representatives from North Shore, Waikiki, and Kauai entered into the journal as if they were my own, and just point out there are a lot of economically disadvantaged residents of Washington, D.C., unlike the implication that all of the residents of D.C. are congresspeople or lobbyists or so on. That is not factual.
Thank you very much. Further discussion, members? If not, thank you very much. Next page, stand camera report number 1505, discussion. 1506 and 1507. 1508 and 1509, discussion. 1510 and 1511. 1512, 1513, 1514 and 1515, discussion. 1516 and 1517, discussion. Okay, if there's no further discussion, members will be taking a voice vote on these measures. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed say no. The motion is carried. Representative Bellotti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to adopt Standing Committee Report numbers 1518-22 through 1530-22 as listed on pages 14 through 18, and that the accompanying House resolutions and House concurrent resolutions be adopted.
Thank you very much, Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Thank you very much, members. Bottom page 14, stand camera report number 1518 and 1519, page 15, discussion. Stand camera report numbers 1520 and 1521. Stand camera report numbers 1522 and 1523. Yes, Representative Ward.
Speaker, I rise in support of this resolution.
Please proceed in support.
The title is apologizing to the Native Hawaiian people for the effective prohibition in the Hawaii schools of the instructional language in Hawaiian. Mr. Speaker, this is a debt that's being paid by this generation. I mean, obviously none of us prohibited that. And there is a rise and a renaissance of Hawaiian language. But I think this is very appropriate. The same way, Mr. Speaker, I don't know if some of it, maybe one representative was here when I was here, when Peter Apo and I, in 1993, when the nation had the Clinton apology to the Hawaiians, Representative Apo, a Democrat, and myself sponsored a state apology to the Hawaiian people for the overthrow. So just as a footnote to this, this is important. There's a turning now, if you will, of what's going on in the Hawaiian community. Again, I commend the leadership for the $600 million that is going into building more Hawaiian homes. It's time for the Renaissance to get politically engaged as much as it has been socially and economically. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Representative. Further discussion, members, on these resolutions? If not, thank you. We're going to move on to stand camera report numbers 1524 and 1525, discussion. Representative Capella.
With reservations, please.
So ordered. Thank you, Representative. Further discussion?
Mr. Speaker?
Yes, Representative McKelvey.
Thank you. Since it's up for adoption, I'd like to stand in strong support of the resolutions.
Strong support. Please proceed.
During the committee hearing on these resolutions, we had a testifier from the area, educate us on the fact that the region alone takes about 45 minutes to cover. And when you couple that with the time it takes for response of the police from the Kapolei area, there's clearly a need for this to happen. So I just wanted to stand in strong support because I think it's long overdue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative. Further discussion, members, on the resolutions before us? If not, thank you, members.
Mr. Speaker?
Representative Peruso.
Sorry. I stand in strong support.
Yes, this would be for stand camera report numbers 1524 and 1525.
Correct. And I want to say that this speaks to the lack of staffing for HPD across the island, and I think that all of the members are aware that we are short 250 members of HPD, and it affects all of our communities, and I recognize that it is affecting the Leeward Coast in the most dramatic ways. So for those reasons, I support this effort.
Thank you very much, Representative. Further discussion? Yes, Representative Har.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In support.
In support, please proceed.
May I please first have the words of the representative from Lahaina entered into the journal as if they were my own?
So ordered.
And secondly, we have, I think if you look at the shift in population, the Leeward side has grown over the last 10, 20 years. We know that's the second city where all the development is slated to occur. And as a result, our communities have all gotten bigger. There should be some type of per capita allocation with respect to police officers. We have all recognize the fact that HPD is having a hard time hiring right now, and that the current mayor has made a pledge to try to actively recruit. But that said, we continue to have major problems on the west side because of response times. So that is why I stand in strong support of this resolution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Representative. Further discussion, Representative Ward.
In strong support.
Strong support, please proceed.
And my exact sentiment was expressed by the gentlewoman from Wahiawa, and may her words be put in the journal as my own.
So ordered.
With her permission.
So ordered. Thank you very much, Representative.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Representative Lopresti.
Thank you. In support.
In support, please proceed.
First, I'd like the words of the representative from Wahiawa and Kapolei entered in the journals if they're my own.
So ordered.
I just wanted to speak to some of the facts on this, that our district is so large, the police district for the west side, it stretches from Kaena Point all the way to Iroquois Point. And even if there's something as simple as a traffic light outage, we have to have HPD take officers, say, from Nanakuli and Waianae, so there's almost no officers there, just to come direct traffic in Ewa Beach, and vice versa. It's a public safety issue. It's vital that they simply divide it up. The idea is they're going to divide it up in two, so that there are two police districts, so that the people are adequately served for the growing population. It's desperately needed for the west side. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Further discussion, members, on the resolutions before us? Okay, if not, thank you. We're going to move on to Stand-Com Report numbers. I'm sorry, Stand-Com Report number 1526, discussion. Thank you. Stand-Com Report number 1527, discussion. Stand-Com Report number 1528, any discussion? Representative Ganadin.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong support.
Strong support, please proceed.
Can I try to do this without a mask on? This resolution requests the Department of Land and Natural Resources to conduct public forums to solicit input from the community regarding the lease of state lands to the military. I'd like to give my personal and professional thanks to the Corrections, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee for hearing this measure and for our vibrant discussion. This resolution would not affect military lands like those at Pearl Harbor, which was delivered to the United States under quasi-legal arrangements with the government of the Kingdom of Hawaii in a reciprocity treaty which was the result of what was later called the Bayonet Constitution of 1887, so called because of the duress placed upon the government to cede land and power to Americans. This would not affect significant parcels of Kaneohe or Kauai or the Northwest Hawaiian Islands. What is being considered is lands owned by the state, by the people of the state. 23,000 acres at Pohakuloa, 4,370 acres at Kawailoa, at Poamoho, 1,170 acres at Kahuku, 760 acres at Makua. The U.S. military leases these lands for $1 a year. When the leases were issued, they were for 65 years, and those leases expire in 2029. What is important to note with these parcels is that the state is the landlord. Unlike recent issues with Red Hill, the ultimate power lies with us, here, at the state legislature. We should also note that we do not have a military designation in the Hawaii Revised Statutes. We treat these lands as any other. As indicated in the testimony, when these leases were issued, there was no federal EPA. There was no Hawaii State Constitutional Convention. There was no requirement for the state and its agencies to engage in public discussions, the EIS or the NEPA processes. Mr. Speaker, it is time we ask the community what they want. Of course, the DLNR must still undertake the EIS and NEPA processes, and those are already underway. And it may be argued that those engagements with the community over state land are sufficient. I argue they are not. They were not sufficient in discussions over the use of Mauna Kea, and they are rarely seen as sufficient to include the narratives of indigenous and working class communities. This resolution would, ideally, prepare future versions of this House for a conversation of the use of this land. As this is state land, we can foresee that leases being a major point in future gubernatorial and federal conversations and about how we continue to partner with the United States military. A possible result would be that the Department of Defense and its branches returns to the state with a modified request for these lands, or that we address the Hawaii Revised Statutes to include things like rent, rights to access, and other rights in alignment with the decisions of our Supreme Court. Mr. Speaker, this resolution can be seen as joining international efforts to reverse the historic effects of colonialism and the oppression of Native and working class communities. It has become a rallying call in the internet era. Land back. One word, land back. More than that, Mr. Speaker, this is your House reacting to the living memory of citizens who have advocated for decades for peace, for an appropriate relationship to the U.S. military in support of the land.
Thank you, Representative. Further discussion, members, stand camera report number 1528, Representative Russo.
In strong support.
Strong support, please proceed.
I think the most important element of this resolution is that it calls upon the DLNR to assert the responsibility and take on the kuleana of being the landlord in these conversations, in these negotiations. So our community has been involved in this conversation since 2021. We've already started the EIS process, and there has been a process of community input. But it is striking to me that the organization developing the recommendations and the entire narrative around this conversation is the military. And we need to step forward as the state and really take responsibility for this process and to own this process. And I think this resolution moves us in this direction. And I'd also just ask that those community members who have already submitted testimony and have participated in the process, that testimony be considered and included in the DLNR's report.
Thank you very much, Representative. Any further discussion, members? Stand camera report 1528. If not, thank you. We're going to move on to stand
Mr. Speaker?
Yes, Representative Branco.
With reservations, please.
So ordered. Thank you, Representative. Yes, Representative Holt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, with reservations.
So ordered. Thank you, Representative. Representative Ward.
Same request.
So ordered. Representative Capella.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In strong support.
Strong support. Please proceed.
And I would like the words of the representative from Kalihi to be inserted into the journal as if they were my own. Thank you very much.
So ordered. Thank you, Representative. Further discussion, members. We're still on stand camera report number 1528. Representative Tokioka.
Reservations, Mr. Speaker.
So ordered. Thank you, Representative. Okay, if there's no further discussion, we're going to move on to stand camera report numbers 1529 and 1530. Discussion. Okay, if there's no discussion, members, we'll be taking a voice vote on these measures. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed say no. The motion is carried. Members, are there any announcements? Yes, Representative Ichiyama.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just wanted to remind everyone that next week, Thursday, April 7th, is our 23rd annual Easter Basket Drive for the Women's Legislative Caucus. So hope everybody's getting their baskets ready. And if you could please help us out by bringing your donations down that day on Thursday. It will be immediately following the House floor session right out here at the chamber level entrance with the glass doors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative Holt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I be permitted a late introduction?
Yes.
Thank you. We have one of my constituents here in the audience. She is the neighborhood watch in our community. Angela Young, may you please stand to be recognized by the House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative. Any further announcements, members? Yes, Representative Tokioka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on this day, March 29, 1973, the last of our combat troops left Vietnam and the last of our American prisoners of war held in Vietnam came home. We must not forget the ultimate sacrifices that more than 58,000 whose names are etched in the Vietnam Memorial in Washington, D.C., and the 313 names of the Hawaii warriors etched in the Vietnam Memorial here at the State Capitol grounds, both constant reminders of the price of freedom and liberty. I want to thank and call to remembrance the sacrifices of more than 9 million service members who served in the Vietnam War era. From November 1, 1955 to May 7, 1975, and to honor and pay tribute to more than 6.5 million Vietnam veterans with their families who are living today. On behalf of the Kauai delegation, our biggest veteran on Kauai, Mr. Kawamura, asked if we can remember them. And so on behalf of the Kauai delegation, this is for all of the Vietnam veterans, and God bless them all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative. Further announcements, members? If not, for the motion to adjourn, Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I move that this House stand adjourned until 12 o'clock noon tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Representative Matsumoto.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Thank you very much. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed say no. The motion is carried. The House stands adjourned until 12 noon tomorrow.